Pretty much become tradition on this channel to do these commenters don't understand blank videos, especially after posting a Why Nobody Plays, and we recently posted a Why Nobody Plays Exodia, the Forbidden One video, and oh boy are there some fun comments that we're going to read today. Now I do want to address at the very start of this video, there's one comment that really doesn't pop up in the other Why Nobody Plays, and that's that Exodia recently, I think like a day after I uploaded that video, not a day after I scheduled the video had been scheduled for like days at that point, but a day after it actually went public, there was a deck that won an OTS championship playing Exodia. It was the Treasure Panda Exodia deck list, and a lot of people didn't realize a couple things about that. So I think most people don't realize that an OTS championship is literally just a local tournament. Even the player that was playing the deck, if you don't know, he recently got second at YCS Columbus using Goki, and then he said in his deck profile that Exodia was not a competitive deck and it was just a for fun deck, really emphasizing the fact that he was just trying to have a good time. He did not think Exodia actually was a competitive strategy. Obviously, this is coming from a serious competitor playing a deck for fun just at a local tournament, but a lot of people I think didn't realize an OTS championship was just a local tournament because people kept sending me things saying, I mean, I got tagged in like the deck profile like 100 times on Zodiac Duelist, people saying, haha, this proves you wrong. And I find this interesting because one of the things that I mentioned in the Exodia video, the original one, is that someone took Exodia to Worlds, and what I say in that video is that the World Championship, while a very prestigious event and an event that I will probably never get to, I'm not good enough to get there, while it is a very prestigious event and a lot of people look up to it, you have to keep in mind that the format is different, and also it's like a 30-person tournament, so many of the inconsistencies of Exodia don't really happen at those smaller tournaments. So if we take that sort of idea and apply it to this OTS championship, you can kind of see the same thing happening because it's a smaller tournament, the inconsistencies will not come up, but also if I didn't think a World Championship top 8 finish was enough to make Exodia good and relevant, why would I think a first place finish at a local tournament ran by someone who was just playing it for fun, why would I think that would make Exodia good? I think that there's this idea in the casual community specifically that if a deck ever tops in the history of the game, it is now a good deck. It's something that I see time and time again. I'll play decks that are haven't been meta for years, decks like Monarchs, and people are still complaining that I'm playing a meta deck, and I think that this comes from that idea that to some people, if a deck has ever topped, it suddenly is now a really good strategy, sort of ignoring when it topped and also the circumstances that it topped under. So I know I spent a lot of time talking about this, but it was something that came up a ton of times, not only in Zodiac Duelist where I was tagged in the post, but also in my own comment section where people kept saying over and over again, but Doug, Exodia just won an OTS championship, and I think we can now hopefully realize that doesn't actually matter in the grand scheme of things. That whole video does not change just because one person topped one locals with one deck. Anyway, let's take a look at some of these great comments. This person said, don't want Exodia cards in opening? Explain me FTKing on my open hand fam. And basically what this person is referring to, although it looks like he left out like 5 words periodically throughout this, he's basically mentioning the part in the video where I say that you don't want to open the Exodia pieces because they're bricks. And what he doesn't quite understand is that I wasn't referring to a situation where when you open all 5 pieces, I was talking about when you open 1, 2, or 3 pieces, and even sometimes drawing 4 pieces can be kind of awkward if the 5th and 6th card in your hand, assuming you went second, aren't actually good enough to get you to that last piece. But I understand it's easy to make fun of, and I got a couple comments like this, but just realize that I wasn't talking about opening 5 cards. Obviously, winning the game immediately is really cool, it's just getting to that point when you've opened 3 pieces is pretty tough to do. In this video, I mentioned that there was a magical explosion and life equalizer combo that basically was the better version of Exodia, and in all forms of the Exodia deck list that almost saw success, pretty much in every single case the magical explosion variant of the deck was just a lot better. The example that I used in the video was Monarchs in 2016, where some magical explosion variants actually did top events where Exodia variants didn't, because you only had to draw 2 cards instead of 5. And I got a ton of comments from people saying, I don't understand how this magical explosion combo works. Well, basically in 2016 2016, what you have to know is that Upstart Goblin and Chicken Game were both at 3 copies per deck, so you could play 3 Upstart Goblin and then multiple Chicken Games, and then use pseudo space to copy the Chicken Games, and you could very easily make that 8,000 deficit between you and your opponent, and then you could activate Life Equalizer, after which you would activate Magical Explosion, or you could chain them together as long as you did it in the proper order, because if you did it in the reverse order, you would Magical Explosion first and then Life Equalizer, and that won't actually win you the game. So the idea with the Magical Explosion Life Equalizer deck, very similar to the Exodia strategy, is that you're drawing your entire deck turn 1, while at the same time reducing your own life points by about 8 to 9,000, so you can do the combo. And that's how that works, and I'm sorry I didn't explain that. I thought by putting both cards on the screen people would understand, but I understand now that I should have mentioned the combo more in depth than I did in that video. I don't get why you keep making these videos analyzing obviously bad cards. It always just comes down to it's too inconsistent and slow. And I sort of think about this a lot of the times, and I really do try to select the Why Nobody Plays sort of card series that I put into the actual videos. I really do try to think about what cards are controversial enough, because if we talk about cards that are automatically just really bad, like Zone Eater and stuff like that, and I'm sure someone will put in the comments that Zone Eater is broken as sort of like a joke, but just in general, cards like that I usually don't talk about in videos because everyone kind of knows they're bad. But I would say that just in general, the very fact that Exodia is on the Forbidden Limitless, and the fact that it's iconic, and the fact that even if you go to this video, there's hundreds of people claiming that they win with Exodia all the time, I would say that just try to remember that not everyone is at the same skill level you are, and also try to remember that I don't really just say it's too inconsistent and slow about every single card. Some cards are one or another. Some cards just aren't good enough against the current metagame. There's all sorts of reasons that cards can fail, and I think it's important to look at them. What makes a card like Dark Bribe that once saw play and then sort of fell off different from a card like Chaos Max Dragon, which never saw competitive use? And I really like talking about the history of cards in my videos, so hopefully you can watch them and realize I'm not just saying every single card in these videos is too inconsistent and slow. It's definitely a lot more in-depth than that. Dzeeff, Heart of the Underdog, can work. Just load up your deck with strong normal monsters, several with 1900 attack, several with 2000 defense, either one or the other. And what this person is referring to is that I sort of called out the Heart of the Underdog deck for being a bad strategy, specifically referencing the fact that when you don't draw Heart of the Underdog, you basically just lose instantly. And this person is just reminding me, not really like a bad way, they're just telling me like, oh, maybe I didn't think about that you can just play 1900 attack monsters with 2000 defense monsters. I'm here to tell you that that didn't even work back in the day. It simply wasn't good enough to play a bunch of normal monsters. I mean, really think about it. Like, the chances of opening Heart of the Underdog are so low, and even back in the day when the deck was even thought of as sort of like a fun strategy that people might take to a tournament, even back then this wasn't good enough. Even with all those 1900 and 2000 defense, attack, and defense cards, it still wasn't strong enough. So in 2018, yeah, a whole deck full of normal monsters, even with high attack points, probably won't be able to beat anything. So you still sort of have the same issue where if you don't open Heart of the Underdog, you can't win at all. And even in some cases where you open Heart of the Underdog, you still draw into the head way too early sometimes, and it just turns off your entire turn. I didn't screen cap this entire comment. It was a little bit longer than I wanted to talk about, but the start of it says, only watch the anime and play Magic the Gathering with no experience with this game. My question is, why not just build your deck normally with whatever strategy you want, leaving 5 card slots open for Exodia? And then just sort of went on to say like, oh, don't the pieces by themselves, couldn't you use them to sort of attack your opponent's monsters in a pinch, even if you don't have all 5 of them in your hand? I actually got this question a bunch of times, mostly from Magic the Gathering players, and I think that it's worth talking about because this is something that I see from Hearthstone players and Magic the Gathering players when they're analyzing Yu-Gi-Oh cards without actually having played the game. And as someone that's played Hearthstone and a little bit of Magic the Gathering now, I can firmly say that the reason this happens, and what a lot of Magic the Gathering players don't realize, is that in Magic the Gathering and in Hearthstone, you can send 4 1-attack minions into a monster with either 4 toughness or 4 health, depending on which game you're playing. Those 4 little monsters will beat that one big monster. What makes Yu-Gi-Oh so different from those games in this way is that in Yu-Gi-Oh, a bigger monster will always defeat a smaller monster in battle, regardless of how many small monsters they have, which which means that this sort of idea of maybe just playing the pieces just in case you draw 5 really doesn't work, because in the cases where you don't draw all 5 pieces eventually, which would probably be most of the games you play, in those cases you're just playing with like these dead 200 and 300 stat minions that can't actually do anything against your opponent's board. This is just something that I see come up multiple times, not only in this video, just on other videos in general where I'm talking about cards being bad. A lot of Magic the Gathering and Hearthstone players seem to say, well, what if you just do this, send these little monsters in to attack your opponent's big monster? Does that work? And the answer is no. And lastly, the comments that I've just started to get recently as the video has hit 100,000 views, I've gotten a ton of comments asking, isn't this card forbidden? And I obviously know that when the video first came out and it was my subscribers watching, most of them were just making those comments as a meme. So I'm pretty much only using comments that I've recently gotten on this video talking about where people are asking, isn't this card forbidden? Obviously it has Forbidden One in the name, but many of these I would imagine are actually serious. And the answer is no. And also you can just look these things up. I always get confused when people say that cards like the Egyptian gods are banned or cards like Exodia are banned. You can just look it up. It's completely free. It takes like 2 seconds. Just look up, is Exodia banned? You'll get your answer pretty fast. So no, Exodia is not forbidden. He is not the Forbidden One in terms of game mechanics. That's just his name, and that's pretty much all I have to say. Anyway though, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Maybe I have another one of these planned. I don't want to spoil it quite yet, but I got an influx of comments on an older video, and I might want to do another one of these commenters don't understand. Let me know what you guys think about this video. Let me know what you think about these comments. I will see you later. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.